All right, gang. Welcome to part now 3. Wow, this is going to be a lot of parts. I think this is going to be a 4-part day here. Oh, look at that craziness. Welcome to uh, technology. Welcome to part 3, class 5, painting the landscape from beginning to end. This, I believe, is going to be a 4-parter. So, hang in for that. And this way you can bounce around if you want to see the demos or if you want to just skip to this portion where I'll be doing the lay-in of the creek. Part 4 will be looking at everybody's beautiful work, which I can't wait to do. But during the break, Sandy, star student, asked to see the commissions that I just sent out. So I'm just going to go ahead and do screen share. I've just posted them to my website. You guys all see my website there? Michael Orwick Arts.
Yes.
All right. So under paintings, so I have available paintings, which are paintings that are for sale. And then I put all my sold paintings just under paintings. Got great news too that this was my demo. Michelle was there for part of that out at the coast. This painting actually just sold. So that was nice news because that's a big one. It's a 3 foot by 4 foot. Always nice.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
That's good news.
And Michelle was smart enough not to help me name it, so she didn't have to buy it. Oh. All right, I was just curious what that button did. Can you guys see that okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this was a bigger one. This is a 3 foot tall by 4 feet wide. And actually the front area is actually from photos from Oregon. In fact, a lot of it's kind of based on Oregon. And we just took out all the pine trees and put in cypress trees to make it look a little more Italy-like. They wanted very much rural Italy, not like the spectacular, postcard pictures that everybody's seen. So that was a fun challenge and interesting to work on. If I do zoom, up here you can see a little house up on the hill, little villa. So yeah, that was fun. Yeah, and then matching the colors to their home. So initially I had lots of golden fields, and they decided it was just too much yellow in the painting. And so we kind of went with a more organic and kind of the beginning of fall. I'm going to see if I can actually find these on my computer so we can actually see them a little bigger.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Did you start from the back and work your way forward?
No, Shaunak, I work all over the place the whole time. I did do the sky pretty early, but I, kept going back in and changing it, modifying it as we kind of got new color schemes. So here, let's just see.
I like how you put the road in there. That's pretty neat.
Thanks. Yeah, I wanted something to kind of guide the eye, and then it goes to here, and then I'm hoping that it kind of takes you up to here and rolls you back. So it was a lot of design. And in the original photo, or photo of Oregon, there's just these huge pine trees that just, they're right behind the vines here and just takes over this whole area. So it's interesting to use a bunch of photo references and just making things up. And again, color matching. So they wanted some gold, but not too much. They loved the burgundy colors. And then the painting is sitting next to a rock fireplace, which has a lot of blues and grays in the rocks. So how could we bring those elements in? It was a lot of fun. It really was. It was a long process. It definitely was a lot of going back and forth. And I think it was an interesting thing because, I painted it according to what I thought their first instructions were. And then when I sent it to them, they kind of changed their mind, which is pretty typical when you're working with clients and stuff. And, and there was also more vineyards in this area. It kind of kept going back. And they, basically said we would love some of these kind of turquoisey colors, maybe in the shadows, and more of the earthy greens. And maybe we can get rid of some of these vines so it's not all yellow, and then get rid of the yellow in the fields. And as an artist and stuff, you're just kind of like, oh man, you know what? I you don't understand my vision, blah blah blah, whatever it is. But the truth is, all of their suggestions and all of their feedback made the painting better, in my opinion. I actually like it much more than the previous version that I sent to them. The second one, 40-inch, and they wanted to make sure that we weren't painting the same time of day. And they also thought, we didn't need, Tuscany's not only vineyards. So, and keeping to the rural theme. But this one, we introduced the idea of, maybe a grander villa or a little village up on the hill, a farmhouse, and another little farmhouse up there. And again, leading the eye in, creating a sense of movement. So yeah, that's what we ended up with. And they seem to be very happy. So that's good news. All right.
I wonder if they would agree to taking a picture with, next to the fireplace or in their setting, and those kinds of finished settings could maybe help show people the value of a commissioned piece.
Yes, they will be sending me photos. Yeah, and I do like to get, even when people buy prints and stuff, I love just to see kind of the environment, and some houses show off better. Some people are better photographers, some the lighting, all the things. But I do have a collection of, and I generally will ask for that from people. So I think it's important for sure. All right, let me pull
When you do this, do you reserve the right to do anything with this design in the future, like make a print or?
So I did do
parts or...
Yeah, I did do professional photography of it, which costs, like $75 a photo. And yeah, I am offering prints of it available now. Oh, darn it.
I like how the perspective of, as you're viewing that, looks like the hill is going downhill into the valley, and just yeah, it's something that it's just seeing it and then trying to translate that into how did you get that look of it going downhill versus level or uphill.
I mean, photo references are important. This is because I've been to Italy twice and Tuscany twice. I do have a lot of photos. And so yeah, the whole foreground minus all the trees are made up. No, that's maybe not true. But anyways, oh, it's actually not true. We actually removed, because there was actually a big one in the front. So this area is one photo, this area is one photo, this area is another photo, this area is another photo, and then the whole lighting scheme is another photo, but we altered it to match because it's much more golden light in the original. So yeah, it took a long time. It took a lot of going back and forth with drawings and different ideas and concepts until we got, everybody agreed. And it's always scary all the way to the end. And then both of them are big enough that I couldn't get good photos.
So did they get both these paintings, or
what's that?
Did they get both of these paintings?
Yeah, they both
did.
Are the same client, and it's
okay.
That will go in their big, beautiful Tuscan kitchen. So yeah.
Sounds like a lot of work for you.
It was a lot of work. I kind of told them eventually, I'm like, this is the longest I've spent on a commission painting. But it was worth it. I want them to be happy, and I enjoyed the paintings. And and of course I was working on other projects during this time. I mean, I had to do 19 paintings for the show out at the coast during this whole time. So I just work on a lot, and gave them time to think about different things. I mean, even like the reds and turquoises in the shadows and stuff were, you know, just them coming back and saying, how could we bring this color in? How could we bring this element in? And yeah, it was an interesting project.
That's
But
beautiful.
but you know, commissions are always an interesting blessing and a curse, but I really do like helping people bring their vision to life, and it helps me to just think outside of myself and outside of my own box. And so commissions aren't for everybody. Most all of my friends say no to commissions, but I come from an illustration background, working with books and, you know, magazines and things, so I kind of have a little better feeling for that. And yeah, I like it. I enjoy it. It's, you know, it can be frustrating at times, but it's also very rewarding.
Yeah, that's a beautiful painting.
It's stunning.
Yes.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It was fun. Okay, let's do stop share and get back to the easel. All right, great. Seems like it's going to work out. All right, so what I'm going to be doing is laying in the acrylic underpainting, just kind of looking for the big design elements and trying to figure that out. And then we will, and I'll do it pretty quickly. I'm not going to refine it too much because I want to get to your guys's work. So I'm just going to try to do it in about a half hour, block it in, and then I will refine it before the next class, but I'll give you guys an understanding of what I'm doing. So you'll see that I'm starting with a mid-value gray. I just kind of mixed up some colors that were on my acrylic palette, plus black and white and a bit of burnt umber. And then today, when I was cleaning the palette, I kind of did a similar thing where I just mixed a bunch of the earthier colors together, added a little bit more burnt umber, and then added some black to it. And then I'm going to just use white. So it'll basically be a reddish, brownish, black and white. I like to warm up my black, so it's not just a straight black and white. The reason is, just like Gail was asking earlier in class, is if you can just glaze into the beginning stage of the painting. And I do like to do that oftentimes. And I found that if it's just black and white, that when I go to glaze, that it's actually very cool, and I lose some of the warms and a lot of times the blacker areas, because oftentimes black is just a very, very dark blue, that it brings on a green tinge if I kind of glaze in with any kinds of yellows. So I find that adding a little bit of burnt umber to it warms it up just enough that gives me something that I like. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
All right, I'm just trying to get my reference on the screen here. And unfortunately, when I shut down the camera to change, I saved it in this strangely blurry setting, but we'll just make that work.
No way.
All right. So I put away all my oil painting brushes, grabbed a bunch of old, just cheap brushes for acrylic. I've got my palette set up. Oh, can't show it too much because the white's very runny, but there it is, just whites and that dark brownish color that I mixed up. And then I went ahead and squeezed out a little bit of black if I do need to get back to the, if I need any really dark areas. What I'm going to do is I'm not going to add too much water. Linda was talking at the beginning before class started, and I do know a couple other people do end up treating their acrylics like watercolors. I don't think you need to do that. For one, it makes them very transparent. For two, they can be drippy or runny. But I think that having them as thick as possible actually allows you to just keep layering. Right now, I'm just mixing up a mid-value gray again on my palette. Just kind of mix some brown or some of this dark color into the white. But the truth is I'm going to start with a fairly dark. I like to go from my darks to my lights oftentimes. I'm just mixing up a couple of different values on my palette here real quickly. It is the Stay Wet palette. I've got a lot of, I should have plenty of working time. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start making marks and kind of figuring out where in space everything exists. So I know that where the creek is going to turn is kind of back in this area, which is pretty important. And it's also a nice focal point area. It's kind of in the rule of thirds. So I'm kind of going to mark that down, clean this brush. Got a little too much white paint mixed in there. Get back to the darks. And I'm going to just kind of squint my eyes at the reference and look for kind of the bigger, darker shapes. Maybe mark in a couple placeholders. Just so I kind of know where the ground and the water are coming in. If I were doing this kind of on my own, or if I cared, I could really draw it out maybe with a pencil or refine it, measure things, but I'm just going to kind of make it a little more on the organic side, allowing for a little bit more of just kind of a natural feel to it. And I'm just giving some marks to myself so I kind of know where some of these big darks are. So that when I come in and start covering, which is going to happen pretty quickly, but the great thing about acrylics is the drying time and the ability to layer quite quickly. Isn't that weird looking? But even plein air painting outdoors, a lot of this is just, I'm just giving myself some coordinates to work off of. And I can just kind of check, and I'm looking into the shadows, looking into the darks. Again, just thinking I'm just building a foundation. Nothing is dear. Everything is movable. Just figuring out placement. I'm thinking very, very abstractly. Just values. There's no trees, there's no rocks, there's no creek. This is just lights and darks at this point. All of that other information will come if I do my job correctly. This should make it easier. pretty messy, pretty loose. The great thing about acrylics is all of this is very fixable or changeable using just a simple value pattern and just some lights, darks, and mid values. Just using a big brush because I'll be able to use smaller brushes to come in to carve out my important shapes.
What color did you use to mix with the black?
Just some earthy browns, but for the most part, it would be burnt umber.
Okay, and is this acrylic?
Yes, these are.
Okay.
But it's difficult, strangely difficult for beginners and for, I mean, even advanced painters to keep thinking abstractly, right? We just try to not paint things. It's lights and darks and shapes. That's all I'm really thinking about is how are those things playing together? And also see, I'm just kind of trying to make sure I keep things lined up. Because it's such a wild forest, right? It's just so full of stuff. It doesn't need to be right. Like the trees don't need to be exactly in the right place. In fact, I don't want them in the right place because the reference was just too busy. So I'm kind of looking and seeing how can I edit this scene a little bit, make it a little clearer, which trees are actually important, which ones are just busyness. You don't need to worry about all the leaves and stuff that would be over this because that's going to come. I'd be able to bring those back. I can layer my paint. So dark to light, big shapes to small shapes. When I get to the oils, it's thinner paint to thicker paint is typically how I prefer to work. It seems to allow me to lay in the paint better.
Is that a 12 by 16?
This is a 12 by 16, yes. Good question.
Is this just a lighter version of the dark one?
Here? Is that what you
Yeah,
meant?
the paint you're putting in right now, what color is it?
Yeah, I'm just adding a little more white to the mix is all. Yep, good job. Yep. And again, I just know that the colors are going to come. I know that the detail is going to come. I know that I will be able to keep working, refining, building up. But right now, I'm just literally just, it's like a silly roadmap for myself. And it's just, for me, so important that I just keep thinking darks, lights, big shapes, smaller shapes. And really just looking to the values. The values, and you've heard me probably say this before in this class, but the values are the foundation of the home, right? We are so excited to pick out the carpets and the drapes and all the fun stuff that makes our home feel like a home. But without a good foundation, without a good structure, which is basically our values, our lights and our darks, at least how I like to paint, then there's nowhere to put those drapes and blinds and all the things that we want to get to. So this could feel a little bit like, oh man, I just want to get to the fun part. The fun part is those beautiful little fall leaves, over here or whatever it is. But me taking the time to kind of get things laid in, is almost always worth it. It can be as big and messy like this if you want. You could come through and do it in a more refined fashion. But I kind of like this way of doing it sometimes because it's almost like doing that wipe away painting that I do where it's just the big shapes all of a sudden kind of come out and then I'm just seeing how do these darks connect to each other? How do they relate? How do I create the feeling of ground and not have things floating away on me? And I am using just a big silly brush here. I could might be even smarter if I was using a smaller brush, but I want to kind of get as much of it covered as possible here. And as quickly as possible.
Is
So,
this the reference that has the little bit of blue at the bottom?
yes, it is. Yeah.
So you're not going to put the rock in or make that really strong diamond shape with the trees. I'm just observing the difference.
So, yeah, I took both of those elements out. Yeah, what I'm going to do is have this tree leaning in a little bit, and then the tree back by the focal point is going to lean in a little bit. But yeah, I took out the diamond shape that these two trees leaning in made. I just found it to be, it wasn't helping to tell the story I wanted these trees to tell or this forest to tell. And I found it to be distracting. Others of you who might look at that and say, you know what, the painting is about that interesting diamond cathedral reflection that it makes. And that's absolutely valid. I mean, that's what's so fun about going out and painting it with a group is just seeing, the thing that annoys me in the landscape might be the thing that draws the other person in. And they're totally valid. And if I was to paint it again, second time or third time or whatever else, I may make completely different choices. So there's no right or wrong, but you just do have to make some choices and then kind of stick with them and figure out maybe why you made the choices that you're making. Just kind of getting it covered. And I'll be able to step back, see if kind of my floor plan, as it were, for my foundation is making sense. If it's going to be worth building a house on top of this foundation, or if it in fact could use more work. Are you guys beginning to see the scene kind of materialize a little bit as I just kind of, you know, go from one shape to the next shape, from big shape to smaller shapes, just kind of breaking these areas up a little bit as I get in there. Not worrying about detail yet. The detail will come. It will show up.
Well, I wish I could paint as fast as you can.
It's so beautiful, even just black and white and gray like this, or taupe.
Oh, good.
It is.
And that's kind of the test, is like, does this hold together? Does this make something, again, it's the foundation. Is it an interesting, can I envision it? Can I see an interesting home being built that I want to spend some time in? You know, I'm going to keep working on this for a while. Is it, the design is everything. You cannot paint your way out of bad design. That is a lesson that unfortunately I have to learn and relearn and learn again multiple times every single year. Because I just get so excited, just like you guys. I just get so excited. You know, oh, I want to get into the color. Oh, I want to get into the, you know, the leaves and the grasses and the blue and the water. And it's just so important that we make sure that the design is there. I can hear you yawning.
I'm sorry.
Much more fun to paint than it is to watch, I know. We'll get you guys painting here in no time.
Oh, it's delightful to watch.
Ah, you're very nice. But sorry, I already gave away the gold star for today. Yeah, I mean, truthfully, I don't know, like if I weren't kind of trying to rush through this a little bit, if I wouldn't, you know, maybe start refining things a little sooner, but I really think that this, I can just keep blocking in big shapes. And then again, just using these values, I can really come back in with smaller brushes and everything else and start to refine. You know, making my tree trunks a little more straight or, you know, clean edged. But I also kind of like this because it has this very organic feel to it. It's rough, like your initial impression of the forest, right? And it helps me just to not get too fussy. Something fun too, and just the almost chaos. Like, how do I control this utter chaos that I'm seeing? There's just so much information, and it's just by slowly breaking it down. Hopefully, I will give myself an entry point so that I can mentally wrap my head around what the heck it is that I'm seeing. So that I can share that with the viewer. At this point, we're just trying to tame a wild beast. Maybe not even tame it yet. Maybe we're just trying to figure out how to communicate with this wild beast. little more quiet than I normally am when I'm doing a demo, but almost every time I look at the reference, I kind of get lost and kind of have to figure out where the heck I'm actually in the scene.
Could you maybe show the reference up to the camera? It's a little bit hard to see from here. Whoa, there's a lot more detail from here.
Right, and I did posterize it a little bit, so it's not too much detail. On the other side, I actually have a more detailed version of it. I'm just big shapes to small shapes. You saw how messy and just the big darks were. And now, hopefully, detail is just kind of beginning to reveal itself. And well, I mean, not detail, but it's getting a slightly more detailed. And because I'm not thinking things, I can just literally look at my brush and say, what value is on my brush? Where else is that value as I'm putting it down so that it's and already these acrylics are drying enough that I can just keep layering in. That's what I really like. Already my grays are getting all mixed, so I'm just kind of poking around to wherever the value, because I've mixed a lot of different values already. So I can go right back over those darks, because remember I said, like, you know, we'll see here in just a second when I get into this area, I didn't need to preserve all the foliage. I don't need to preserve all the little ripples, because I can just bring them back in. Right over the top. And it should feel a little more naturalistic. And the other thing is that I'm getting to see this design that's kind of laying underneath all of it. Bouncing around, literally just looking at values, looking at shapes. Seeing how they're playing together, how they're sitting with each other. And hopefully, without me overthinking it, by just looking at the values, lights and darks, hopefully the forest is beginning to materialize. Hopefully a creek starting to materialize. Again, I will be able to come back in with smaller brushes and more refined. I'm not worried about that. In fact, all of this is completely paint overable when I come in with oils. But either the happier I am with it or the closer it is to what I'm looking for will make my future job easier. Go ahead and clean that brush because I'm going to try to get to some of the lighter stuff a little bit again. Big block-ins, keeping it very abstract. How many of you guys have the struggle of, as soon as you start to get any kind of detail or anything, you begin to think, oh, leaf, 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 or, you know, tree trunk, grass, rock, whatever it is.
Me,
Yeah.
Are you ever able to just think values, lights, darks, and shapes?
it's hard.
Isn't it weird? Yeah, we spend our whole life, you know, training our brain to see objects and to see things, and then you get into Mr. Orwick's painting class, and he's telling you to just, you know, completely change how you think, how you see the world.
I know.
I'm a bully.
Through your eyes, in the end, it's beautiful.
But it's a difficult thing to think about, but it's not up to us to paint the thing. It's up to the viewer to see the thing. It's up to us to put the right values, right shapes, right colors in the right spaces. And then those things become. Hopefully that made sense. It didn't sound too strange.
You're right.
I'm already obsessing about the little ripples in the foreground or how you will address those without getting overly detailed.
Yeah. I don't know. I probably just won't try to copy the photo, or I'll blur the photo and just kind of look for the big shapes. Because nobody cares if the ripples are exactly right. Just need to get the essence of ripples, the feeling of ripples, without becoming too generic too, without becoming like, oh, a ripple looks like this and there's 1,000 ripples here. I want to look to the organic nature and big shapes of it and try to figure out what's interesting with them, which ones are important, and how can the others support it. All right, I think it's about time to put down the big brutish brush and pick up something a little more gentlemanly, something a little easier to control. but I think maybe even more importantly, well, I will ask you guys. Class is, we're already at 12:15. So did this give you guys kind of a good enough idea, or would you like to see me actually kind of try to refine some of this stuff a little bit?
I want to see you refine it.
Yeah,
Yes,
I'll stay as long as you are.
yes.
I'll put down that brush and I'll pick up a couple. These are some of my favorites. These are actually nice brushes. But let me step back for a little bit because it's important that, you know, this is my foundation. This is the structure. And I haven't stepped back once, which is a big no-no. You know, I know better than that. But when I'm painting in front of people, it's always difficult to make that time. But what it'll also do is give us a minute or two to let this kind of set. What I'm going to do, basically, probably just to do a quick refinement, is I will come back in with some darks, figure out a couple of the more important shapes that I want a little cleaner. You know, some of the trees, maybe some of the shadow area. And then I'm going to do the inverse. I'm going to come back in with some of the bright lights and knock those in. And then all those in between grays and stuff, I'll be able to manipulate that as we keep playing along. Looking at the monitor, I'm feeling okay about the shapes and structure that I've established. I'm wondering, you know, maybe I can play up the bend in the creek is kind of getting a little lost in my messiness. And plus, it's not that obvious in the reference. So I think the creek, you know, it's coming from back here, kind of wraps. And there's a bit of a turn right in here. So I can play that up. I'm going to bring the shadow across here to play up and maybe bring in some of these, a little bit of a turn in the ground here. So I can just show you really quickly just by making a couple marks. So the creek, again, it's coming from back and behind. So I can kind of turn this up just a little bit. Because this is pretty important, right? The movement of the creek will kind of give me more, some of the most important elements of said foundation. So then it kind of comes back in here. And again, I can, these are notes for myself. Nobody will really see this underpainting besides you guys. So then so the creek goes between this light, comes down, and I need it to turn here. So that means I need to bring something ground form ways into here. And then the creek kind of wraps around. The bank that's over here is just a rocky bank. Now, it's okay if I cover up, you know, my light rays here, because it's more important that I get the right information. Still really wet. It'd be nice if it's a little drier, but it's okay. You know, I wouldn't want a really clean line like this to show where the bank is. But for me, for now, it's important enough information. It kind of comes down here. So a lot of times, even when I'm painting, I still spend time to kind of go back and just go, how can I help the structure? How can I make the foundation more sound, right? So you guys see that bank all of a sudden that was kind of wishy-washy before?
Yes.
So that's important information for me. Get it on the other side as well. There's no shame in taking a step back when you're painting. If something is confusing to you or you're losing your place in space, take a second, find it out again, figure out, and what marks can you make to let your future self know where you are in the painting, right? Again, it's just like a roadmap, it's blueprint, it's all these things. This information is for you, the painter, for me, the painter. Kind of interesting how all of a sudden, just by having these kind of goofy lines in there, all of a sudden my heart just goes, oh, I understand. Oh, I can breathe a little bit easier. I can kind of see how this land works, how the water is moving through this landscape. You know,
Yeah.
it's like the creek is actually turning. Do I need to change any angles of things? Maybe bring in, chop in the shadow a touch more so it carves into this shape. I don't know. It can come back in and rechange it, but I might as well test it. All right, I forgot to step back. Give me 1 second. I'm going to step back. All right, any questions or anything at this point of what I'm doing, how I'm doing it? Does this make sense? And is the painting beginning to reveal itself?
It is, and it makes sense. While you're doing it and just watching you, it makes so much more sense.
Great. Anybody else? Questions? Is this something you would ever do, a way you would approach a painting?
Not quite.
Would you approach a painting in oil with an oil base of underpainting like this also?
I would just keep the paint much thinner.
Okay.
But yeah, I like to do it with the burnt umber, or one of my favorite combinations is the transparent earth red and ultramarine blue, because then I can have warms and cools as well.
Okay.
I'm totally gonna try this to follow along on with the acrylics like you're doing. I'll definitely, I try to keep it in mind.
Yeah, so here's one with oils, also a creek scene. But I'm just blocking it. I mean, it's very, very, very loose at this point. And I think I got distracted. Maybe I had to go mow the lawn or something. But you
Looks
can
like looks like a fire scene.
right, yeah. Another
Yeah.
I often like warm colors as my underpainting, like you saw. Not everybody does, but so many of my paintings start quite warm. Yeah, here's another one.
Beautiful.
Just kind of blocking in, figuring out how, where things are in space. And I just have piles of those sitting around, literally piles. Here's a plein air that I did that I never got beyond the underpainting. It's I was standing under an orchard and there was a bunch of light in a field, but the light was coming back behind. And I really liked the elements. So yeah, just
Beautiful.
knocking in the shapes, knocking in the values.
Leave it like
Yeah, maybe like that.
Yeah, we'll see.
Maybe that's why you haven't gotten back to it, because it's good enough.
Maybe.
I guess I'm not the only one that has half-started paintings.
Literally, I'm over here and I'm picking in a pile of about 20 of them. So here's one where I took it, to the second stage, but not to the third stage. Yeah, here's one. So just, out at Savi Island, just looking for the big shapes. And I like just doing these, especially out plein air painting, when I'm just challenging myself to just look for shapes and values. This is the creek right near my house. This one's just a made up scene. I just kind of like this tree. And thought it might be nice again with water back there, kind of over a hill, over a lake or something. And this was another little plein air sketch out at
Like that.
the islands. Yeah, so just, just notes for myself. But how to get back to them, I don't know. I hope to. They sit over here and they cry and ask me why I don't love them anymore.
I have the same problem. It's like it's so hard to start another painting because I'm like, oh, I got so many ones that I need to finish.
Right. You know what I've decided mentally? is that it's almost like an editing process, because I just get so excited by design and values. And, you know, like in that one, it was just the tree that made me excited. But then after, you know, if it sits around for a year or whatever, and I haven't gotten back to it, then I'll just probably paint over it. It just becomes like, oh, you know what? That's not as exciting as I thought. But I'm still learning, even in those underpaintings, I'm still learning a lot. And so I've just kind of come to terms with that my dyslexia, my ADHD, all these things are just a part of who I am. And that my excitement is part of that. That's part of the ADHD, right? You just kind of get so excited by a thing. You're just like, oh my gosh, this is going to be the best tree I've ever painted. But you just don't get back to it. And it just, then, you know, I don't know. But sometimes I do come back, or sometimes I change my mind or see something else in it that I think could be fun or interesting. Or sometimes I just go, you know what? Let's use it as an experiment to test this new color scheme or whatever else. And so sometimes those little guys that sit around for a year. The other thing, who was saying that they have the same issue?
Oh, what's wrong?
I do, Sandy.
Sandy? So the
Yeah.
other thing about it, Sandy, is, you know, in the beginning, I'm very in love with it, right? I think it's going to be the best thing I've ever done, or it's so exciting. But once I start to fall out of love with it, then I can be freer with it. I can really experiment with it. And sometimes those end up really fun and interesting. And so, yeah, I used to beat myself up about it, but now I really just don't. I just kind of just go, you know what? That's part of my creative process. That's part of your creative process.
I'm glad you're doing this here, because I didn't do it. And I think I'll play this back and go along with this, and because the picture is, like you said, is really distracting. There's so much stuff in there.
It's utter chaos. It's a
Yeah.
overload, as my friends say.
Every time I tried to paint it, I just went abstract, and it looked childlike and messy and couldn't tell what it was.
Well, now you're not alone. I did the exact same thing.
No, yours is better messy than mine, and I shamelessly posted everything to see my foibles.
Good for you. I appreciate your bravery. I think it's good that we can all laugh at you. I mean,
You're funny.
I mean, just know that we're
No
all.
shame, Mike.
I can't believe you guys chose this as our picture. I mean, this is like quite literally maybe the hardest reference photo I have. And you guys are just like, yep, we did the creek and the 3 trees and this super simple scene. Let's just jump all the way to this chaos. But I think it will be a good experiment and a good experience for you to figure out, how do I simplify that, or how do I pick what is important in that scene? How do I decide out of these 1 million trees and rocks and pebbles and moss and ferns, what is important in this?
This is the best class, Michael, I've ever taken with you.
Thanks. No money back on the others.
Okay.
But I think it's good to challenge ourselves. Know that this is an obscenely difficult painting. Like, I'm scared right now painting on it, or intimidated by the utter amount of chaos and information that the wild beast that I'm trying to figure out how to even just communicate with it.
I think there's a freedom though in taking on a challenge that we know is way over our skill, because then it sort of removes the idea of perfection, because yeah, I think it can be freeing.
I like that.
You mentioned those brushes that you're using, the really good ones. Are they the Rosemary brand or?
Oh, these are Catalyst brushes by Princeton. And they just, I don't know why I like them so much for acrylics, but I've been using them for a bit now and they really hold up. A lot of oil painting brushes just don't hold up to acrylic paints. They get really, I think it's the water in them. So I think these must be a synthetic blend, but the bristles are not as hard as like a hog hair bristle, but they're definitely not your generic water mixable brush. Like I like them so much that I actually bought a set for my daughter because she likes to paint with acrylics a lot. You know, it has been her whole life. And I was just like, you know, she's already really good with them. And she uses a combination of watercolor brushes and oil painting brushes that she stole from me. And I don't know if she's used them yet, but I sent them to her. But I just thought they were so good. I was like, oh, this will give her, you know, this will even make what she's already doing that much easier. Possibly, you know, she might find them, you know, just because I like them doesn't mean she will.
How is she enjoying her classes?
She really, really is loving them. Yeah, she's liking the challenges. She's liking the professors. She was kind of telling my wife and I that a lot of the other students, you know, complain a lot about different assignments that they don't think are as interesting and stuff. But she's able to kind of see the potential and see why they're doing what they're doing. And I think when you get assignments, you know, and you guys can let me know if I'm ever faulty of this or guilty of this. If you ever just get assignments and you don't know what it's for, I think that can be very frustrating. And but I think she's able to kind of see the long game of all of it, all the design work and all the color theory and everything else, and see a logic to it, which I think is really important. I mean, I remember being in school just thinking, oh, this is just busy work. But no, she seems to be really enjoying it. And she's got her work in the school gallery right now, so she's very excited about that she got her work in there already and just sending us pictures. So I think, you know, when you know it, you understand what you're kind of doing, you can see the reason for it, and then you're also kind of getting rewarded, getting some feedback. I think that all goes together to make things a little more enjoyable. She also has made a lot of good friends. Her room seems to be kind of the hangout for a lot of the students, which makes having phone calls with her a little bit annoying sometimes when there's a lot of voices and stuff, but she's definitely liking the social aspects as well.
You've got to be just so delighted.
Yeah, I mean, when you just hear that they're happy, that's kind of, I mean, you know, hopefully we're spending a lot of money. Hopefully she's learning a lot. But yeah, you know, being happy really helps make learning easier and more enjoyable.
Well, Michael, I'm sure her years of painting with you and alongside you has given her a maturity that maybe some of the other students didn't have her advantage of having a parent that painted, you know. She's an exception.
No, for sure. Yeah. And I think that's one of the reasons the teachers like her too. She has the language to speak about art and the understanding. I mean, we've taken her around the world and shown her all the cathedrals and museums and big shows. And so, yeah, she definitely has an advantage going in. But more importantly than that, she likes that stuff. So even, you know, like last time I was talking to her, she was telling me about the art books she bought. And I was like, oh, what classes are those for? She's like, oh, no class. I just saw them and I thought they were amazing art books. And, you know, that's a probably better use of her money than beer and, you know, all the other things that kids can get in trouble with.
Exactly. Books are always good for.
Yeah. So you see again, now I'm just beginning to refine it. Is it kind of, it's, it sounds so silly, but you remember the old Polaroid pictures, right? And you just take the photo
Yeah.
and hold it, and you wave it around, and it begins to materialize. It goes from a big blurry mess, and slowly elements start to resolve themselves, begin to appear. That's how painting is for me, especially when I'm thinking in a good abstract manner. Again, just telling myself, trust the system, trust the process, right? Because I, just like you guys, I get like, ah, man, I want this to look good already. I want this to, you know, why can't this be detailed and beautiful and, you know, all these different things. Trust the process that you're building, and that the detail will come, the information will begin to reveal itself. So important, like when I do the dueling easels or the quick draw events, or even out plein air painting in front of, you know, complete strangers and stuff. You know, I just want it to look good right away, but I just have to go, nope, it doesn't. That's not how it works. Not for me. Not, and if I do try to rush that, I get myself in trouble and I end up having to fix. So sneaking up on it a little bit is better for me, but that doesn't mean that it's how you're going to end up working. These are all just tools and different ideas. I'm literally just hoping to present you guys with different ways to approach painting, to think about painting. Some of you guys are going to be doing color studies and value studies for the rest of your life. Others of you after this class may never do one again. You know, and that's okay. I just wanted you guys to see that that's a way to approach a painting. Some of you guys are going to take the whole writing exercise to heart and will, you know, write notes to yourself before and during and after the painting of what's working, what am I focusing on, what's the main element here, what's important, what am I learning from this, what am I hoping to learn about it, what am I focusing in on this, is it about color, or is it more, or is the value structure more importantly, or is it about abstract design and brushwork? All those things are valuable and worthwhile. I find that if I try to work on everything in every painting, for one, it's so crazy, but for two, I'm not learning in as consistent of a manner. So, you know, like one of the reasons I like teaching is, again, you know, in the fall, I'm working on design and structure, composition. In the winter, I'll focus in on color and temperature shifts and harmony. And in the spring, I'll work on brushwork. Not that all those things aren't in every one of my paintings, right? But by focusing in on it, I can pick subjects that are going to correlate with what I want to learn. I can pick subjects that are going towards the things that I'm working on. Sorry. When I get into the like tight spots, my brain just kind of stops. So you can see now I'm bringing in some of the lights, kind of figuring out what way the light is moving across the surface. And I'm just about to wind it up, but just because, again, I think you guys are getting a good enough idea of this, and I do want to spend time looking at your beautiful work and letting you know that I really appreciate what you're doing.
My husband Dave asks if that is Humbug Creek.
Yes, it is, Dave.
Must be nice.
Humbug Creek or Wolf Creek is another. I don't know if they feed into each other. But some parts of the map, I swear I'm standing in the same creek, and sometimes it's called Wolf Creek, and sometimes it's Humbug Creek.
Michael, are we gonna see you put color on this eventually?
Next week. So that's
Okay,
trying to get this kind of, and I'll keep working on it if I need to. But maybe this will be enough information, you know, whatever I get to kind of move forward.
Well, Michael,
Yes. Yeah.
I like how you pushed the value and design this long. I tend to go to color too soon, and I think that's a real problem when you haven't really fixed your foundation.
Thank you. And thank you for not saying you're bored by me doing this for so long, because yeah, I
No,
appreciate
I've
it.
taken a photograph about every couple of minutes.
Oh, good. Can you share that? I'd love to do a little flip book.
Then I don't have to watch the whole video.
There you go. Exactly. Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
almost like a miracle before your eyes to watch what it came from to what it's becoming.
goes to, yeah.
Oh, thank you. And it is kind of a miracle. I mean, painting is so crazy. I mean, look at us. We are taking some pigments and some kind of a medium mixed with it. Like if it's oils, it's with oil, you know, some pigments and some medium. And we're painting on a two-dimensional surface using some animal's hair or whatever this brush might be made out of. And we're creating a world. We're creating hopefully three-dimensional space. I mean, it's so amazing. And the truth is, humanity wasn't even capable of doing it. Like painting in the illusion of 3 dimensions is pretty new to mankind. And I think it's just so crazy that we get to do it and that we can do it, that just by putting a couple darks and a couple lights next to each other, you know, I could show this to a little kid and hopefully the kid would be like, oh, that's Humbug Creek or a creek or some forest. Or it's amazing to me that we can do this.
Okay, Michael, I have another question.
Please.
Where you left the lights there for where the bright green comes through there. Up in there. Now will you use something transparent over some of those areas, or?
Yeah, I'll probably try to do a little bit of that, but with the full intention that I, you know, most likely will come across most areas with opaque or more dense.
Okay.
But yeah, I do like that. And then you also get that sense of glow.
Yes.
We do with transparent paint. And that's why I will, you know, pushing things all the way back to white. You know, I used to not do that as often, but now I know that with glazing and with these different techniques that I like, that if you have that bright white underneath your transparent glazes, they really, really glow. So that might be really fun in some areas. I'm not liking the brush marks I'm making up in these really bright areas, so I might kind of have to kind of come and do a little something with that. But yeah, good question.
I'm just trying to figure out how I want to approach that particular area.
Right.
Yeah, do you think you will glaze parts of it first?
Yeah, that's just kind of what we were just talking about. Yeah.
Okay, I missed the word glaze, sorry.
Maybe I didn't. I don't think I said it, but I'm not positive. Yeah, I maybe wasn't even clear. But yes, I think that I will do a quick wash of some glazes over it. And I may even do that with acrylics before. But just to get some of that glow, because the photo does have a lot of glow to it. And I like having a combination of transparent glazes and nice thick opaque paint that's also catching the light. And yeah, I like that combination. When we were doing that trip, we got to see a lot of Joaquin Sorolla's paintings and a lot of Monet's paintings. And even though we think of both those painters, or at least I did, as big, thick, juicy painters, they had big areas of very transparent, thin paint. And it really just, I loved the combination of thick and thin paint, transparent and opaque paint, all those things playing off each other. I thought was really neat, and it was kind of nice just to go, oh, I can do that, or you know, I get to do that. I can't do it yet, I'm still learning, but it's an option. You don't have to be either or. All right, I think that will be a good enough start. Let's go look at your guys' work. And this will allow me to kind of get some fresh eyes on it and see if I actually like what I've done here, because that's the great thing too with acrylics, is I can just come back in and cover that paint right back up. All right, Don, here's your photo you can take. Tell me when you got it, and I'm going to turn the lights off just to see how it looks in the dark. Well,
I got it, Michael.
It's interesting when you turn the lights down, how all of a sudden
Wow.
the browns start to show up.
Really different.
That's really nice.
It's really exciting. It's got so much good energy in it.
Oh, good. Yeah, I mean, the brushwork's still messy and choppy, but again, I'm still just kind of figuring out
Ooh.
the wheres and the whats.
Thank you for what you did. It's just amazing.
I know we're over time, but let's take a 5-minute break and then come back and look at your guys' work. I'll go ahead and stop the camera.
Okay.